Charles Augello. This is my friend Jason and my mom. They'll be the audience
Hello.
members today, and who's behind the camera?
His brother Carson.
All right, guys. So, today I will be presenting to y'all Bob Lazar and what happened to him in Area 51 that made him as famous as he is today, and just how this whole scenario could revolutionize mankind. So who is Bob Lazar? He's the famous Area 51 whistleblower. We'll get more into that later if you don't know what that is. Bob's mother recalls him always conducting science experiments as a kid. He put a jet on his bicycle and he took off at 6 in the morning down the street in front of all the neighbors. But his infatuation with science would eventually earn him a master's in electronic technology from Caltech and a master's in physics from MIT. Bob's also known for inventing his own jet car as an adult. You can see him in it right here, in his little jet car. It was fueled by hydrogen from water, and just knowing this is really important for later in the slideshow, because this isn't a common thing. You have to be really smart to know how to do this, and this is verified by his past neighbors in the Bob Lazar documentary that he was in fact smart enough to do something like this in his garage. So what happened? Well, because of his smarts, Bob was approached and interviewed not knowing what the job was, but once he was hired, he learned he'd be working in a sector of Area 51 called S4. He was told that he was part of a team working on classified government projects, reverse engineering extraterrestrial technology. Now, the hierarchy inside of Area 51 was set up like a drug cart. Now, if you don't know what Area 51 is, classified top secret Air Force Base, middle of nowhere, Nevada. This is where they conduct top secret weapon experiments, new technology, blah, blah, blah. But the hierarchy in here is it's kind of set up like a drug cartel, if you will. I know that's a little intense, but let's say when you catch someone from a drug cartel, when you arrest them, you can never get any information. The government can never get information out of them because they don't even know the real name of their boss. They don't know the boss of their boss. They just know the job they're doing, and they know the money they're going to get paid. And that was Bob. Bob's team was only in charge of reverse engineering the antimatter reactor that powered these alien spacecraft. He didn't know what this guy did. He didn't know what this guy did. All he knew was his job and what he was there to do. Once Bob realized what was going on here and all the lies that was being told to the general public, he decided to expose Area 51 to national media, and this would make him known as the Area 51 whistleblower. But let's talk about this for a second. So the antimatter reactor that powered these alien spacecraft was powered by element 115. This element is not found here on Earth. That's what makes this so interesting. The reactor, when turned on, created a force field around the spacecraft, and even when turned off, Bob would try to put his hand on the sphere of the reactor, and he couldn't even touch it. It would reject his hand like a magnet. This is only possible with antimatter technology, which again is not found here on Earth. Never been possible to produce here. This technology allowed the spacecraft to perform almost impossible aerial maneuvers. So you could see a spacecraft here, and it'd go unhumanly fast to this point, but it would just stop. It wouldn't slow down like you'd see brakes on a car, brakes on an airplane. It would go from here to here and stop. And again, this is only possible with a force field technology, not possible here on Earth. Do you understand where I'm going with this? So, why Lazar for the job in the first place? Well, from the beginning, Bob thought that it was weird that they were showing him all these classified briefings. That why are they just exposing all this to me, an ordinary citizen? Well, now it all made sense. Bob was smart enough to potentially make a breakthrough for the United States government, but he was enough of an ordinary citizen to where if he wanted to expose the government, they could just wipe his records, say he was lying, make him out to be a nutcase, and that's exactly what they did. So Bob Lazar spills the beans finally, and the government went above and beyond to shut him up. Once Lazar became the Area 51 whistleblower, his academic records were wiped. You couldn't find a record of him attending MIT, attending Caltech, and this made people skeptical. They said, why should we believe anything this guy's saying? How do we know he ever worked there? Well, what I bring to the table is how can you build jet cars in your garage and understand physics? To this day, he still practices all this to this day without having that kind of education. You don't just know how to do these things. And over the years, there have been multiple accounts of vindication, whether it be leaked photos, articles, or past acquaintances verifying that Lazar was where he said he was when he worked at Area 51. He was at Caltech and MIT when he said he was. And even some of the stuff he saw in Area 51 was proven years later with leaked pictures that what Lazar said he described was true. Prime example of that is Area 51 hand scanner. Lazar would describe to his friends and family how he would get into these these buildings, his sector for S4. You had to put your hand on a hand scanner and it biometrically scanned your hand. It would scan the length of the bones in your fingers, and which is unique to each individual, but people were telling him, you're crazy, like this technology doesn't even exist. Well, sure enough, years later, pictures would come out leaked of these hand scanners, exactly how Bob described they looked and exactly how Bob described they worked. So that was just one of many accounts of vindication for Bob. So why should you believe anything that I'm saying? Well, we could have a potentially diverse planet Earth. Now, if you use your imagination for a second, assume that everything Bob is saying is 100% true. We could have a potentially diverse planet Earth. If intelligent life exists and we were to interact with it in the future, society would be as diverse as ever, and that would literally change the definition of diversity. Instead of living and coexisting in a society of humans with different races, different ethnicities, we would be living and coexisting in a society with different species from different planets. And access to antimatter technology would make space travel to other planets a commodity. That's how the technology got here. So once exposed, once we know how it works, we can literally make space travel a commodity, and it would change the way we travel, go to work, live a normal everyday life. We wouldn't need airplanes or cars anymore. We would be completely mobile. We would be mobile in a completely different way. It would change everything. All right. So lastly, I'll leave you off with this. If Lazar is telling the truth, this would change what we know about our own government. This would mean the government would be able to decide what we know and think. They did it to Bob. Bob tried to tell everyone he knew this, he saw this, but the government wiped his records, and they said, no, this guy's a nutcase. So they were able to control what you wanted to think and know. And this is committing crimes against society and science. If you're withholding this information from the general population and the scientific community, that is a crime. And it's not just because of national security. They literally did not want us to have this technology. So before I go, just think about this for a second. How can we believe anything the government is telling us? These are my slides. Or this is my works cited, my sources. And thanks, guys.